Welcome to the boxing show. Today we're talking Anthony Joshua versus Joseph Parker, where they attempt to unify the heavyweight division with the championships that they are defending. So I'm going to be talking in this video about my thoughts on the key factors that surround this fight. But before that, I just want to ask you to stick your neck out on the line, go to the comments section below and let me know whether you are picking Anthony Joshua or Joseph Parker and what you think the method of victory is. Okay, so this is a unification fight where a number of titles are coming together to be contested for. We've got Anthony Joshua's IBF title. He also has the IBO and he has the super version of the WBA. And we've got Joseph Parker's WBO, which is great. So we're in theory unifying those four titles, three of which are three of the major four. One of which is the super version. This is always a bone of contention, and whilst it has been defended and passed across many times, particularly in the last couple of years, I've always been the opinion that the super versions of the title should not be won in a ring. They should only be awarded. In effect, they shouldn't even be awarded, but as they are. And the fact is you can defend them, and if you lose them, I believe that they should be kind of obsolete until they are rewarded for, you know, some kind of merit. But anyway, this is what we got. They're being contested as a regular belt, even though it kind of isn't. Because we also have the WBA regular title, which hasn't been owned since Lucas Browne was stripped of it a couple of years ago. So we don't know what's going on with that. We've also got Deontay Wilder, the holder of the WBC. So this fight is a unification, but it's not going to be a fight for all of the marbles, okay? So it is also a unification fight by two undefeated current champions, something that we rarely see. We see unification, but rarely are both of them undefeated. So that's a very interesting and unique twist on this fight, and something that kind of does separate this from other huge fights. Now, it's taking place in Cardiff. I believe that the reason it's taking place in Cardiff rather than Wembley Stadium in London is because it isn't really convenient to use Wembley Stadium at present, because it is currently being used by Tottenham Hotspur Football Club on a regular basis to have their home football matches. So I can remember Eddie Hearn saying something last year that it's unlikely that they're going to use Wembley Stadium in 2018, and they were looking for options. I can remember that reading something that he was initially thinking about Twickenham, which is a rugby stadium, which would have been interesting, but they've gone for the Cardiff route, and this is where Anthony Joshua defended his title for the first time against Takam. So that's an interesting, or he not defended his title for the first time after he basically got his mini unification and then defended both of those titles against Carlos Takam. Right. So let's kind of start moving on to the fighters and some thoughts about them. Now, the first thing, which is the most obvious thing, is that there is going to be a size difference, a size differential between the two. Anthony Joshua is going to be the taller, the heavier, and have bigger reach, and I think this is going to be somewhat noticeable. I believe it's going to be somewhat noticeable when the two guys come face to face in the ring. We're really going to see a significant difference, particularly as I believe the Joseph Parker is likely to slim down somewhat for this fight. So there will be, I believe there'll be a significant weight difference. There'll be a significant size difference, and you know, there's positives and negatives to that, but you know, some people like to fight bigger fighters. They like to use it to their advantage. some struggle, and you know, some fun fighters, when they're the bigger guy, they can just use that to their advantage and really dominate. Now, Joseph Parker's team have really pushed the buttons of Anthony Joshua to try and get this, and they've done this by really kind of highlighting to the wider public the vulnerabilities that Anthony Joshua has. We're talking about the suspect chin, and they've really highlighted the fact that Anthony Joshua has been dropped professionally. He's been stunned professionally. He's been in a little bit of trouble professionally, but also he has been stopped in the amateurs, and in sparring we are led to believe that many young bucks have been able to floor Anthony Joshua, which is an interesting dynamic. And yeah, as I say, we're led to believe this has really got under the skin of Anthony Joshua, and it's kind of pushed the fight to you know, being announced. Okay, now, is it a serious problem for Anthony Joshua? I actually don't think it is. All fighters have, no fighter's perfect, okay, but they can still be phenomenal, and not everyone has a granite chin, and sometimes fighters have you're led to believe that they've got a granite chin, and it's just because they haven't been hit in the right way by the right person at the right time. Okay, and it might just be that Anthony Joshua was hit at the right time by the right people, you know, and that was that. It can be as simple as that. Okay, but we'll talk about whether Parker can take advantage of that later on. Okay, but I thought it was interesting because this is how we believe that the fight has come about, is the fact that they really pushed home the fact that Anthony Joshua isn't as you know, Superman as he is promoted. So, you know, we've spoken about that. Now let's talk about Joseph Parker's chin, because this is the other side of the way that the Parker team are promoting themselves, is that he has a granite chin and he's never been dropped. They even announced that they were offering $20,000 or pounds or whatever it was for anyone that can prove that Joseph Parker has been dropped, has been severely injured. And you know, they're saying that no one came forward. But I think what you have to kind of consider is really Joseph Parker professionally hasn't really fought anyone that you would think would really cause him problems from a power perspective. Okay, particularly prior to his championship run, he wasn't really competing against anyone that would be of danger, particularly if he was moving the way that he was. He fought some old guys that had power in their day, but you know, they're slow and past it, and he was able to kind of use good movement and totally outbox them and box them into submission. So it's all well and good to say that you have a phenomenal chin when it's never been tickled, right? And you know, let me know what you think about that. Does Parker really have this granite chin? Has he proved he's got this granite chin based on his opposition? I don't know. Let me know. I really want to know what you guys think about that. Okay, so continuing with Joseph Parker, he recently fought Hughie Fury here in the UK. I mean, it was initially going to be you know, on the other side of the world, got cancelled. It came to the UK, and you know, I think this was the first step in Joseph Parker's team's plans to get this Anthony Joshua fight. They thought that Joseph Parker would look brilliant against Hughie Fury, but what happened in effect was that it was a fairly close fight. I mean, for me, Joseph Parker, he did win it, but it was close. It proved a phenomenal test for Joseph Parker because of the way that Hughie Fury fought. Now, some people say he ran and he didn't really punch, but he Hugh Fury showed phenomenal movement and skill, and you know, that's a different test. That's a very different test, and it's a test that most boxers in this division are not going to get. They're going to get static, one-dimensional plodders, okay? And to get someone light on their feet that was laterally moving and trying to and using different types of skills is a very, very good test for Joseph Parker. And for me, he will have learned so much from that, okay? He would have learned so much from that fight. Now, can we learn? Can we take anything from that fight to how it will play out with Anthony Joshua? I think probably not. I mean, as I say, we'll have learned a lot, but you know, Hughie Fury fights in a completely different way to Anthony Joshua. So I don't think there's a lot that can be kind of analysed from that fight to see how the Anthony Joshua fight's going to go. And one thing I have noticed about Joseph Parker is that I believe that his style has evolved. Now, you know, I think he's a fairly inexperienced as an amateur. I mean, I don't believe that there's a huge boxing setup in New Zealand. So he's kind of learned on the job. He's learned in an unorthodox fashion, okay? But I can remember creating videos about Joseph Parker some years ago when he was a prospect, before he was getting the bigger fights, and I was really excited about this guy. I thought he was the #1 prospect in the heavyweight division as a prospect. Because he was exciting, okay? He was upright and he was laid back, but he was athletic and he was light on his feet. He had his hands down and he had a phenomenal triple jab. Really, it was just super quick, bang, 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 and he really kind of dumbfounded his opponents and he just dumbfounded them, and then he was able to rush his opponents with like phenomenal combinations close in and like seal the deal on a very regular occurrence. Admittedly, we're talking about fighting against limited opposition, severely aging opposition, but it was still an exciting style, okay? Now, I believe in recent years, his style has modified, okay? It's become, for me, less dynamic, less exciting, and the laid back upright approach has become more forward. His head is more forward. It's more there to be hit, okay? And his hands have become more in front. They're more up, okay? His hands are up rather than down, and you know, being dynamic. They've become up in front of his face to a certain degree, and that's just you can definitely see a posture change, whether that's purpose or whether that's just the way that he's evolved. I'm not too sure, but it's something that I've noticed, and because of that, I believe he's become less exciting, okay? Now, in terms of the fight, will he move or will he fight in close? Okay, can Parker outbox Anthony Joshua? Okay, because Anthony Joshua, for the most part, has fought with fairly stationary targets. Okay, like we say in the heavyweight division, there's a lot of stationary targets. A lot of fighters don't really have, they're not light on their feet, they don't move. Okay, now Parker can do that. He is light on his feet. I mean, he's not going to fight the way that a Fury would. Okay, but he can dot in and out in a very light-footed fashion, which is something that I believe that he will have to adopt. But on the same hand, I believe that he is going to want to rush Anthony Joshua. He's going to want to stay in close. He's not going to want to let Anthony Joshua box him at range. Okay? Despite the fact that Parker, you know, as I said just a few moments ago, as a prospect, he had that lightning quick triple jab, and he kind of left that alone, as he moved through the ranks of fighting these world title fights, that triple jab kind of disappeared. And for me, it was the most disappointing element of Joseph Parker. That triple jab kind of went away because it posed a very awkward question to opposition, okay? And he started to fight in a lot more close, and he started to have these kind of very close and difficult to score fights. Andy Ruiz, you know, these fights, Takam, and they became more scrappy than they had to be, you know, they had to be. And, you know, the fact that Joseph Parker's defence is not the greatest, it's always been a bit of an issue and a bit of a concern to me, that his head is there to be punched, and particularly the fact that I believe that his posture has somewhat changed. I mean, I go back to the Carlos Takam fight, and he took punches that he didn't need to, and it was almost through being lazy. You can watch that fight. There is a number of occurrences where he took flush punches through sheer laziness. He didn't need to take those punches, okay? And we know Anthony Joshua's power is, you know, it's phenomenal. It is truly, truly phenomenal. It's probably the most powerful in the division, and he's hurt many a tough guy. And will Parker be the next guy? Because, you know, it doesn't matter how tough you think you are, you're either going to be stopped or you're going to be severely injured if you keep taking, you know, flush punches. You know, like sometimes, whenever I think about it, I think of Manny Pacquiao versus Margarito. And, you know, he showed toughness in that fight. But he took flush punch after flush punch after flush punch. And he looked like he had, you know, someone had gone to town on him with a baseball bat over and over again. His face was just a mess, right? And, you know, that's the problem. You leave your face out there. You leave your head out there. Poor defence. I mean, Parker's defence is primarily based on his foot movement. And maybe that's the reason why his hands in the last couple of fights have been more up front, more in a defensive posture than they once were. Okay, maybe that's the tactics that they've decided to go about. Okay, so do I think that he can outbox Anthony Joshua? I think he could. Do I think he will? I don't think he will. I don't think he will. So let's talk about Parker's power, because they're talking about the fact that Joseph Parker can knock out Anthony Joshua. I mean, anything can happen in the heavyweight division, but let's look at what's happened in the recent years. We're talking about Carlos Takam. Didn't really hurt him. Takam wasn't really in any danger of being knocked out. Andy Ruiz Jr. absolutely no chance of knocking him out. Didn't really take advantage of him. Didn't really stun him or hurt him. Hughie Fury, again, the same. Didn't drop him. Didn't hurt him. Cajano, this fight was an absolute I hate this fight. And every time I think about it, I think this was just a put up. It was a fixed fight. I mean, it went the distance. And it was against his sparring partner. Parker should have been capable of stopping this guy very, very easily. But it went the distance. Question marks. But anyway. So because of that, Parker's not really shown a capability of landing concussive power against, you know, reasonable opponents. So can he knock out Anthony Joshua? Anthony Joshua's shown a vulnerability to his chin. I think it's unlikely. I think it's unlikely unless Anthony Joshua gasses out. And this is where we move in. Stamina and going the distance. Does Anthony Joshua have an issue? This, for me, is his major issue in the fight. It's not his chin. It is stamina. Anthony Joshua has a stamina problem. Now, in the Klitschko fight, he showed heart will and desire to get off the canvas, you know, defend himself adequately from getting stopped, kind of recharge his batteries, and, you know, and ultimately get the stoppage victory. But despite that, I believe that his tank can be, you know, run to almost empty if you land the right punches, if you're able to hurt him. And can Joseph Parker take advantage of this? 100%. 100%, because one of the things that Joseph Parker has is he has good stamina. I think he has very good stamina. We've seen that he's gone the distance in, you know, fights that were messy, that were draining. Now, he might not have been taking serious leather, but there were tiring fights against Takam, tiring fights against Andy Ruiz Jr., and he lasted, and he was still popping the jab and trying to attempt things late on. So there is the potential for this, if this goes late on, for Parker to really show the stamina. And if he comes in lighter, which I think he should, if he comes in lighter, light on his feet, you know, really adopts that movement, he can really tire Anthony Joshua down and try to inflict a different kind of game plan in the later rounds. Let's be true. So, you know, can we read anything into the Carlos Takam fight? Because both of them have fought Carlos Takam. Now, Joseph Parker fought Carlos Takam some years ago, and it was his first real test. It was a fight that I was buzzing about. Truthfully, I was buzzing about it because for me, it was going to be a coming out party for Joseph Parker. And, you know, it turned out to be a really tough fight, a really, really close fight. You know, it was... in truthful, it was won by a round, and, you know, Carlos Takam showed what a tough SOB he is, and, you know, it was a messy fight, and, you know, Parker didn't really show all of the skills that he should have done. And that was the disappointing thing, that you think he was going to really kind of outbox him, really keep him at range, and, you know, show a lot of talent. And it became a bit of a messy fight, as I kind of alluded to just, you know, a couple of minutes ago. His defense wasn't up to much, and he got hit a few times himself when he didn't really need to. Okay. But despite that, you know, Carlos Takam's a credible opponent, and he got the victory over him. So, you know, for a young and somewhat inexperienced Joseph Parker, that's a good win. But on the other hand, we've got the Anthony Joshua fight that was just at the end of last year. Anthony Joshua got the victory. But the key thing that we need to know about this is that it was a late replacement. It was a late replacement. And we all know that in the camps, they will be training for a specific opponent. And Kubrat Pulev, who was the original opponent, couldn't be any more different than Carlos Takam. So he went into that fight with effectively a 2-week notice. They both did. But, you know, Carlos Takam's trying to fight for the title. He's trying to wrestle that belt against all the odds. You know, Anthony Joshua's expected to win that, expected to win it with ease. And, you know, it ended up being a little bit more tricky than it should have done. And people said that Anthony Joshua showed vulnerabilities and he showed weaknesses, but he took this on short notice and he still got the stoppage. That's what we need to know. So I don't think we can take a lot from the fact that they've both fought these guys, because they fought them under different levels of experience and situations. So let's just quickly talk about what do the odds say. Now, there's an overriding favourite is Anthony Joshua, 1-16 currently, 1-16, whereas Joseph Parker's 7-1. So that's a huge swing. Now the betting says that the method of victory, the most favourable method of victory is Anthony Joshua by KO or TKO, and that's 3-10. Whereas Joseph Parker, he's 25 to 1 to win on points, and Joseph Parker is 9-1, 9-1 to win by KO. Okay, So Anthony Joshua's a 4-1 odds to win it. So we're saying the most likely from the odds is the KO, and basically what they're saying is it's 9-1 that Joshua will win between 3 and rounds 8. So they're the most. That's the betting partners believe the most likely occurrence is a knockout between 3 and 8. Okay. So what do I think? I mean, I've thought about this, and I mean, if you've watched my videos before, okay, and you've remembered the videos that I've done on Parker, and Parker's one of the fighters that I've probably done the most on. I mean, he's up there with Anthony Joshua and your man Tyson Fury. And I was a huge fan of Parker coming up the ranks. I've alluded to numerous times. But in the last couple of fights, I've kind of questioned him. I actually thought that Hughie Fury was going to outbox him. I mean, I believe that Parker won the fight, but I thought that Hughie Fury would outbox him. Okay, I thought that was what was going to happen. Okay, he just didn't quite get his game plan correct, Hughie Fury, and you know, Parker was capable of really closing the distance very, very well, very, very well, and that's why he won the fight. Okay, and some people will say that I'm not really a fan of Joseph Parker, the way that I've kind of been somewhat negative about him. But you know, I am a fan of Joseph Parker, and I think he's got a lot to offer, and I think he can be in a lot of brilliant fights. But I believe that in this instance, Anthony Joshua is elite. He is elite at this present moment. Can he be defeated? 100%. Anthony Joshua can be defeated. Is he going to be defeated in this fight? I don't believe so. I mean, if it goes late rounds, that's where Joseph Parker has the chance. If he's the fresher, if he has avoided damage, you know, if he hasn't taken big shots and he's able to move and be light on his feet and, you know, kind of try to outbox him with good movement, you know, moving backwards and forwards and laterally, he has a chance. But if he gets into a bit of a dogfight and he starts landing and eating shots, I mean, he's going to drain fairly quickly, and we'll find out how granite that chin is. But for me, I believe that Anthony Joshua does win this by stoppage, and that is my prediction. I believe that Anthony Joshua will win by stoppage in the middle rounds. And what happens next? They're talking about the winner of this, you know, unifying it with the WBC, and the champion at the moment is Deontay Wilder, who defends against Luis Ortiz, I believe. You know, I mean, it's exciting to see that these unifications are going to happen, and we're going to see some big fights. You know, the likelihood of some of these other guys that are just on the periphery getting other chances. I'd love to see Dillian Whyte get another chance at Anthony Joshua. I'd love to see Tyson Fury back in the mix. You know, we've got a lot of young prospects as well coming through that, you know, could be fighting against these guys in the next couple of years. So there we go. That's been my prediction. Let me know in the comments section what you think, how you think it's going to go, and I'll see you in the next video.